Hello, Ollie here for another college basketball sports code breakdown. This time we've got Michigan State versus the Ohio State. It was a game where Michigan State was ranked number one and Ohio State was not ranked anywhere near number one, but it was a great upset for the Buckeyes, and let's have a look at what happened. So first we're going to look at the stats as always. Shocking, sarcastically, but Ohio State had a higher three-point percentage. I don't know why I always point that out, but it always seems to be a trend. But the biggest stat of the whole game by far was here. 12 turnovers to Michigan State to only 5 for Ohio State. Everything else is kind of leading to that, so we'll look at that in the video soon. If we come over here to the shot quality, both teams had really bad shot quality, and by shot quality I mean, for example, only 21% of Ohio State's shot inside the three-point arc were good quality shots. That's a really low percentage. They still made 56% of those shots, which is more than Michigan State, who had a slightly higher shot quality percentage. But over to the quarter analysis, this is probably the biggest thing. The game was won and lost in the second quarter. Won for Ohio State, lost by Michigan State, mainly through these turnovers. 6 turnovers to 0, 80% three-point shooting to 20 of the same amount of three-point shots. I mean, shooting just over the board is higher for Ohio State. Rebounds, Michigan State outdoes them by 1, but 6 turnovers is really where the game swung. The third quarter was something similar. Turnovers don't play that big of a factor, but again, it's just shooting. 10 of 13 to 6 of 14. So, I just wanted, this is for the whole game. These stats here. I just want to go to the halftime stats just because they show something about those turnovers. So this is halftime. 9 to 2, massive discrepancy. 6 steals to 1. Three-point shot, same to the whole game, but just at a smaller scale. But the thing I want to point out is these recent outcomes. So these are the most, in order from like latest being number 1 to 20 being 20 plays ago. These are the outcomes of each possession, taken from a pool of made shots, missed shots, turnovers, and fouls. And just looking at these last 10 possessions is really kind of, you see where the game is lost. So Michigan State makes a 2, Ohio State misses a 3, then turnover, made 2, turnover, made 2, turnover, made 3, missed 2, made 3. And you can see, well, obviously it's an obvious trend, but that's really where Ohio State won the game. They made 4, 7, 10 points in a quick span to, turnover, missed 2. So that made 3 as well from Ohio State was a half-court buzzer beater sort of on the halftime horn sort of job. So really kind of been ambushed with Michigan. So now we're going to look at the video. Now, the only real way that Michigan got points in this game was through either transition or Bridges, who's their best player, number 22, just doing things like crazy transition things. So I just want to show a few of those because he is really their best player. He scored the most points. And for them this season, he's their best per average game player. Just want to go back to that because that first clip was jittery. Oh, that was jittery as well, but Nick Ward gets the rebound, and one over there by Bridges. Same thing, makes a crazy layup. This time he just drives to the basket for a pretty difficult layup, but gets it in. That's a lot of where their points came from. Because the rest of the time they were either being bricking shots or they were making turnovers. We want to look at those turnovers and see how they were caused. So Michigan's second best player is a guy called Nick Ward, number 44. He's there 15 points per game. He gets a lot of rebounds. He's a big center / forward, plays either the 4 or 5 kind of guy. And whenever he got the ball in the low post, Ohio State would double him. They'd usually slide over. I'm not even going to attempt to say his name, but he's Ohio State's best player. I think it's like Katie Bates Diop. I'm just going to go with KBD. And KBD would slide to help him, and that would sort of cause turnovers. So it's got some examples of that. So here he is getting the ball now, and then number 33 comes over, swipes it out of his hand, and gets the ball. This would happen over and over again. So number 44 gets the ball, and you saw in that instance, KBD was coming over. Just want to replay that one. Watch number 33 at the bottom here. As soon as Nick Ward gets the ball, get the help, and he causes the turnover anyway. It was just due to the pressure. Again, number 44 gets the ball. No KBD on the floor, but he is swarmed anyway. I just want to go back to that one again. Gets the ball, he is swarmed by Ohio State players. Caused the terrible shot and the turnover. Gets the ball, KBD comes over. But this time, they cause a bad shot again. I just want to go back. I want to show you I just want to point out how good of a job number 3 here, C.G. Jackson, does. He was able to guard 2 players at once, gets the inside guy, and then comes back out to the perimeter. Everyone's marked, causing a air ball. Sorry, I just paused it there. Gets the ball again, Nick Ward. Overcomes KBD. This time he can't recover, and Michigan State get the shot. Michigan State didn't drive. They eventually did pass out of it. As you can see, this is deep into the second half. I just want to replay that last one again. Nick Ward, he would always try and score out of his position when he was getting doubled, but now he's finally learning to pass it in the second half, and they're getting some baskets out of it after KBD. He can't recover back to his original defensive spot guarding the rim, so easy attacking potential. But a lot of points were scored from these turnovers. A lot of those examples I just showed you before didn't lead to baskets, but many did. Here's Nick Ward. He gets stripped by KBD again on the help, and he's able to strip that down and get the easy dunk in transition. There we go again, another Michigan State turnover. Ohio State get the ball. KBD with the crazy jumper and gets it in. Another turnover / block shot. Back into transition. And get the open 3. Nails it. So that's kind of I think the best word to describe it was ambush. Like Michigan State were just ambushed. They came in expecting almost an easy game against a non-ranked opponent, but just that help defense from Ohio State on predominantly Nick Ward, but also the rest of the Michigan State team caused good turnover opportunities and transition opportunities to score baskets on the other end. Michigan State did have some half-court offense though, a lot of it still revolving around Bridges. So they had this play where they would essentially get him the ball in some sort of space in the high post. Around the high post at the edge of the perimeter. It would involve passing it. Just want to go back, sorry. It happened a lot quicker than I thought. It happened by number 34, Schilling for Michigan State, and he would place a screen that would, on number 3 here. Oh, here we go. So number 34 on the screen, places a screen, gets some open position on Bridges. The other thing I want to point out is that Ohio State went under the screens a lot. I don't know if that was something they intended to do in their game strategy, but something that they did regardless. My organizer's just having a fit again. There you go. This time a screen by Nick Ward. Bridges under the screen again. Gets some space, has nothing to do with it though, and passes it off around the perimeter, eventually causing a contested 3 that goes in anyway. So they just didn't run this play for Bridges though. Even when he was on the court, they'd run it to for Langford. Sorry, I just want to go back to that. Same exact play, set the screen, create some space, and gets the ball in for an, I think there was a offensive foul there, but still the same sort of set, opening that space around the top of the key. As I was mentioning before, Michigan State would go, Ohio State will go under a lot of screens. That kind of, I don't know if it didn't really pay off, as we can see in these examples here. Left a lot of three-point opportunities for Michigan State. Both these times Langford getting good jumping looks for an open three-point shot. Michigan State did have some other sets though, like especially when they were coming out of halftime or coming out of timeouts. So this is one that they ran to successful. I'm just playing it again. So Bridges coming off a double screen, getting isolated, one-on-one post position, makes the jumper, gets it in. And I like this angle. I don't know why they didn't do it more often, because I actually quite like this angle. But this one, almost symmetrical screens. I've paused it here, but I just want to point out how I want to show how this guy, where is he? Bridges will roll out to the left wing. I can't tell who this is because he's blurry, but he'll also roll out to the right wing, almost making a symmetrical sort of move, trying to get open shots. Neither one comes open, but it's an interesting set. They ran this a couple of times. It's Langford. Gives it to Nick Ward. But Ohio State did play quite well defensively, obviously, with all those steals and turnovers. Michigan State do get the foul here though, so it was a really good defensive effort by Ohio. They did go under screens, but it didn't work. But all that sort of help defense on Nick Ward really paid off to a lot of turnovers and transition opportunities. So now we're going to Ohio. Now a lot of their game plan revolved around trying to get number 34, Wesson, who's their big center number. Here he is over here, slightly blurry. He averages around 11 points per game, but they must have seen something in the film, and they tried to really get him in the post one-on-one on either Nick Ward or number 3 Tillman for Michigan State. But they never tried to switch him. It was always just him on either one of those two players, trying to get an easy sort of look under the basket. And they did this multiple ways. It was usually number 15 Williams for Ohio feeding him. And they'll try and isolate him on one side. So here again, he's isolated against Nick Ward. Does a really good post move and gets it in. He got 12 points this game, and he had a 124 offensive rating, which is the best in the team. Again, here he is, isolated under the post, on one-on-one with Nick Ward. Hooks it in. A lot of these actions would start with him doing some sort of screen at the top of the perimeter. Here he comes. He's fed this time by number 24, who's his brother, also Wesson. But again, he's isolated this time on number 23, Tillman from Michigan State. Hooks it in. Again, this time he's fed by Williams. One-on-one. Clear the floor, Ohio State. Just let him work. This time he misses horrifically. But you can see the sort of trend that's occurring here. This time he's going to set up a three-pointer for CJ Jackson. Feed him. And then open three-point shot. He didn't usually pass out of the post. He would usually just go himself and make his own sort of move. And you can tell by that offensive rating, it usually worked. He'd always set some sort of screen. As we can see, just go back to this last play. We're just restarting it. He'd always set screens either on the top or at the bottom of the perimeter to try and help get open, or help the people who he was trying to get past to him open. So here he sets a screen for Williams. Doesn't pay off. Gets him the ball anyway. Now isolate again under the backing down in position. This time he gets stripped, and there's a turnover in transition for Michigan State where they score from. But they must have, at this point, this is the second half, really caught on to the Ohio State plan. So because they're doing it so continuously, as you can tell from those last clips, it was a real big trend. The other way they tried to score a lot was by getting number 33 KBD open. I'm going to try and pronounce his name again, Keita Bates-Diop. He got 26 points in this game off 72% shooting, but the more telling stat, he had a 41% usage rate. So it wasn't going to number 34 in the low post, it was really going to KBD to try and work something. So again, they'll try and isolate him alone on one side of the floor using a series of screens and positioning their players on one side so they can really isolate him against a one-on-one matchup. So here's one of those examples, number 33, KBD. Here he comes. Isolate him on one side of the floor. Makes a contested jumper. Same exact play. Here he comes. Isolate him on that side of the floor. Contested jumper, but it gets in. These aren't very good shots. These are what I'll describe as low quality shots, as in that output window as you saw before. But when you're getting them in, I mean, it doesn't really matter. Well, it does matter because it's not very sustainable. But in a one-off situation like a game against number 1 Michigan State, you'll take it any day of the week. So, I mean, they didn't run a lot of half-court sets. I mean, this is just an example of a half-court set they ran. I've paused it here. Number 15, Williams, he does this sort of looping baseline run where he gets screened 3 different screens. It's actually really good defense by Michigan State, but they still get it. So here comes number 15, passes it off to Wesson, and he runs 1 screen, 2 screen, 3 screen. Good switching there by Michigan State, realizing they must have done some sort of film study, but he gets it in anyway. It was an defensive foul, and the shot counted. So just to summarize, on the Michigan side, really good defense by Ohio State, helping on Nick Ward sliding KBD over in defense to cause a lot of steals and transition opportunities. They went under on a lot of screens and it didn't really work, but they won anyway just because of that stretch probably in the second quarter going up into the half. On the Ohio State side, they really tried to isolate number 34 Wesson in the low post, or number 33 KBD on one side of the floor for one-on-one isolations. And when they did run plays or half-set plays, which were very irregularly, they would pay off. So, really good one by Ohio State against the number 1 team. That's all I've got. Boiler up.